Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the State Parliament of Styria. This is the main governing body of the province of Styria, and its job is to legislate on behalf of all her citizens. Since the beginning of the 16th century, the seat of the state legislature has been located in the Landhaus, or Parliament, of the capital city of Graz, and is certainly one of the most impressive examples of Renaissance architecture north of Italy. It was built according to the plans of the Italian artist Domenico Dell'Alio and serves still today as the central place of the Styrian political scene. Perhaps the most impressive room in the Landhaus is the Landstube, the governing chamber of Parliament, where all the representatives meet once a month. In the year 1740, this exquisite space was completely renovated, and there have been only minor alterations since, thereby preserving the authenticity of the mid-18th century. The beautiful stucco ceiling was created by the Italian artist Johann Angelo Formentini. Here we find many historical references to Styria's past. Weapons, armaments, trophies, and Turkish busts recall the Turkish War of 1739, resulting in the Peace Treaty of Belgrade. Coats of arms, along with the initials of various founding fathers and governors, are also immortalized here. And what cannot be missing on such an illustrious ceiling is the iconic Styrian panther. With that renovation, the two large and splendid Rococo ceramic tiled stoves were installed in the Parliament chamber. The panther, symbolizing Styria, and the double eagle, symbolizing the Holy Roman German Empire, provide the crowning touch to these magnificent stoves. 5 chandeliers made of Venetian crystal illuminate the room. Directly above the executive chair, a painting entitled Blessings of Peace by the Baroque artist Franz Karl Remp has been hanging since the end of World War I. It depicts a story from Roman mythology, of fallen Mars, god of war, and a blossoming, emerging art. Up until the end of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1918, a portrait of the young Kaiser Franz Josef hung in this place of honor above the president's chair. It was done when he was a mere 20 years old, just 2 years after he ascended the throne. Today, befitting a true republic, it hangs in the rear of the auditorium, where all may admire this painting. The 4 supraportals gracing the Landstube are by Franz Ignaz Flücher. They portray 4 supine female figures, allegorically alluding to 4 of the Roman fundamental virtues that any man in a leadership role should not fail to remember. Justitia, with her golden helmet, balanced scales, and righteous sword, symbolizing justice. Prudentia, leafing through a book, symbolizing wisdom. Abundancia, shown giving coins to 2 cherubs, symbolizing abundance. And generosity is symbolized through Liberalitas, with her horn of plenty and glass hearts. In the back right-hand corner of the Landstube, you can see a painting of the Archduke Johann, the only Habsburger still to be displayed in the Landstube itself. As mayor of the neighboring city of Stains, the Archduke had no real political function in the province of Styria per se. As a private citizen, however, his achievements are monumental and still regarded as quite revolutionary even today. He founded a great many institutions, among them the Technical University of Graz, the Montan University in nearby Leoben, and the Johanneum Museum in Graz. He was also very influential in furthering agricultural education and was responsible for innovations in the insurance and banking sectors. Any number of institutions can be traced back to Archduke Johann's influence. The man is quite simply Styria's most famous and enlightened son. The sessions of the Parliament are open to the public, which was the reason why, in 1964, the back two doors were removed so that the small auditorium could have access to the Landstube, thereby allowing citizens to observe the workings of their government. As mentioned earlier, the portrait of Kaiser Franz Josef is located in the auditorium. In addition, one also finds here the Georgenberger Pact, well, actually a replica of this precious ancient document, which is kept at the Styrian State Archive. This treaty outlines the original Styrian constitution from the year 1186 and has to do with the succession and hereditary lands of the Habsburg monarchy, involving the Traungauer and Babenberger regions. Also in the 1964 renovations, the Rittersaal was partitioned off to make room for the auditorium. One sees today how this wall was added, especially up on the stucco ceiling, where a glassed-in portion of the partition is built. Since the theater of the city was damaged during the Second World War, the Rittersaal served as a temporary home for the acting company in post-war Graz. Nowadays, various committee and subcommittee meetings are held in this beautiful room. The stucco ceiling was designed by the Italian Pietro Angelo Formentini, which features in each of the four corners the four elements: fire, water, air, and earth. Between these are the signs of the zodiac, accompanied by references to various symbols and means of harvest from those long ago times in Styria. Adjacent to the auditorium, there was a chapel to be found, which was not originally part of the Landhaus. It was during the Counter-Reformation that the prince directed this chapel to be constructed by Bartolomeo di Bosio, dedicated to St. Barbara and St. Catherine. Today, the chapel serves no religious function. However, it was designated an ecumenical sanctuary space over 20 years ago, where one may go for quiet reflection. The Styrian panther, heraldic animal of the city's coat of arms, is to be found in numerous places throughout the Parliament building, even on the Speaker's podium in the Landstube. The word panther, in this instance, comes from an old German word, Pantier, meaning a conglomeration of different creatures, and is therefore a magical, mythical beast. Historically, the panther has always played a central role in the region, which is apparent throughout the Parliament. There is a statute pertaining to the coat of arms stating that the official Styrian panther must be silver-colored, with red horns and red fire spewing from its mouth, against a green background, crowned with a ducal coronet. It is interesting to note that in older versions, the panther is depicted spewing fire not just from the mouth, but from the two lower orifices as well. This was hotly debated in the Parliament during the 1920s. How could such an obscene animal represent the people of modern Styria? It was decided that the wild panther should be tamed down a bit, and therefore fire spews from the upper part of its body only, befitting any well-behaved heraldic creature. Founded in 1412, the members of the Styrian Parliament were of course not democratically elected, as is nowadays the case. Representatives were sent by the wealthy and powerful members of society. The aristocracy, the church, townships, and merchants influenced the political scene during these times. In the course of the following centuries, representatives were sent according to various social classes. At first, very few rich and powerful families appointed very many envoys to the upper house of government, while large sections of the population were simply shut out of the legislative process. It was only with the dawning of the First Republic that general equality for men as well as women was implemented, along with a secret ballot voting process. Since that time, the Parliament has been a full-fledged democracy. The legislative process of today's Parliament can be traced back to the Constitution written by Hans Kelsen in 1920. Just a mere 4 years after the dissolution of the centuries-old Austro-Hungarian monarchy, the creators of the new constitution gave priority to issues of security, both internal and external, cultural affairs, and federal financial matters in Vienna. So-called residual jurisdiction, that were at that time considered less important, were relegated to the townships. The Styrian Parliament concentrates on the priority sectors of regional planning and development, construction, natural conservation, and social services. From the age of 16, all Styrians are eligible to vote for the 48 members of Parliament. The Parliament has quite a minority-friendly parliamentary law. As few as 2 representatives can set the legislative process in motion. They can found a so-called parliamentary club, entitling them to their own chairperson, staff, and office space. They also have the right to address urgent inquiries to the executive branch, thereby exercising the balance of power. At the front of the Landstube, you will find 3 seats reserved for the Executive Committee. In the middle, the First President or Speaker of the House, and on one side, the Vice President, on the other, the Second Vice President. Directly in front of these seats is the government bench, where 6 to 8 members of the current regime sit. The governor and the deputy governor sit in the middle. Nearby are places for 4 stenographers. Not only is there a live stream during sessions, everything is also written down. Incredibly, all sessions of Parliament are available online, dating back to 1861, securing a truly pioneering role in relation to other governing bodies. On the left, you see the seats for the 9 federal councillors, who represent the interests of Styria on a federal level, at the second chamber of government next to the first house of the National Council in Vienna. They are chosen by the Parliament according to the rule of proportionality. Across from them, under the portrait of the Archduke, places for the press are reserved. According to its constitution, the Parliament has a 3-member executive committee and has the task of conducting the legislative sessions. During these sessions, as a rule, the Speaker changes between the 3 members every 2 hours. In addition, they must maintain calm and order in the Landstube, be it among the representatives or members of the public in the auditorium. Any person who offends the dignity and propriety of the Landstube will be called to order and may even be ejected from the Landhaus. At the entrance of the Parliament in the Herrengasse, as well as from the Schmiedgasse, you will find the so-called rumbling panels, which date from September 20th, 1588, making them the oldest example of bylaws in the country. They prohibited people in the building from rumbling, pulling out a sword, a dagger, or a knife, from scuffling and fighting, leading one to deduce that the behavior of the average Styrian in the 16th and 17th centuries was indeed rather violent. One can only imagine how these folks tried to influence the politicians of the day. Early lobbyists, perhaps? The Parliament of Styria, founded in 1412, is not only one of the oldest and longest-running governments in existence, it is also now one of the most modern in all of Europe, due to the workings of the legislative process. Since 2005, it has gone completely paperless, without exception. Representatives may use online signatures to introduce legislation. Committee heads can be invited to attend sessions online. Protocols can be electronically created and distributed. All this is possible through what is called the Palast system. This poetic name has nothing to do with the palace of the building in which this takes place. It is an acronym for Paperless Landtag Styria. In 2010, an ultramodern way to conduct the business of governing was introduced. The Speaker now uses an electronic touchscreen. Ever since 2010, every session is available online worldwide in its entirety. The recent technological innovations, along with going paperless, required a number of renovations. It was not easy to implement 21st century technology in a Renaissance building. All the wiring was laid underneath the flooring of the elegant Styrian Parliament.